Welcome to the Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Fit, the all-in-one AI-powered corporate wellness platform developed by Vantage Circle.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host Dipshi, and today I have with me corporate wellness consultant Eva Selhub. Welcome to the show, Eva.
Thank you for having me.
We are so glad to have you here today, Eva. So before we begin with our topic, can you tell us about your wellness journey?
Sure. Well, I'm a medical doctor. So I started out working in regular Western medicine. And during my career, I really felt that there was more to health and well-being than what modern medicine was providing. And so I started venturing out into the mind-body field and worked as a medical director as well as a teacher at Harvard and the Mind-Body Medical Institute, learning and teaching people about the mind-body applications to health, which include meditation or the relaxation response, psychological work like cognitive behavioral therapy, nutrition, exercise, spirituality, the whole gamut. So we did research and we also did clinical application as part of Harvard in the hospital, and we would see our patients get better. So that sort of started my journey of mixing Eastern and Western medicine together. And then I ventured off even more to start studying with other types of healers, to learn about energy medicine. And during all this time, I was working on healing myself. So my own journey of developing a spiritual practice, a meditation practice, learning about nutrition, learning how to get fit myself, overcoming my own pain issues because I'd been in a car accident when I was 15 and had chronic back pain, and overcoming that. And most importantly, working on finding ways to get over my own obstacles to be healthier and happier, which I translated over to working with my patients, which eventually turned out to be clients as I shifted out of the medical world more into the client world of coaching. And during that time, I wrote 6 books in the space of self-help and healing and wellness, and the last 2 of which were on resilience and burnout, as I found working with people, especially executives, that there was a high level of burnout and a level of resilience needed to be able to avoid that burnout. And so that's sort of where I find myself today. I'm 55 years old and in better shape than I was in my 20s. And I help other people learn how to manage stress, how to avoid burnout, how to learn how to show up as their best selves, happy selves, resilient selves, and also be the best leaders and performers they can be.
You have a very interesting journey.
I think so too.
And okay, so now let's talk about the topic which we are going to discuss today, that is stress management. So how much importance must one put on managing stress in life?
Well, I think that we're going to change that question a bit. I don't think it's about the importance of managing stress. It's just know that stress is part of life. Stress is a physiological term. It just means that there is some type of imbalance in a system, and that's what causes the stress, and the system has to correct itself. So being hungry is a stress, and being cold is a stress. So stress is just a way that every living organism has to manage and find a way to adapt. And so the key that's very important is learning how to adapt. How to be able to adapt to ongoing stress that life will always present. And we have the ability to look at a stress and say, yes, I can handle it. And then we have ability to look at stress and think, no, I can't handle this. And that's what's happening in your brain constantly. So what's important is to be self-aware, to be aware of when we are faced with stressors, challenges that we perceive we can handle, and ones that we perceive we can't handle, because that can be shifted and that can be changed. And we can learn how to use stress to our advantage rather than to what it is doing for most people, which is leading to detriment with, physical and mental and spiritual problems. So what's really important is learning how to manage stress so it doesn't manage you.
So just like you mentioned, we can use stress to our advantage. So can you put some more light on that thing?
Absolutely. Well, that's what we call resilience, right? So we can, I like to use examples from nature to think about what that means. So if you look at a tree and a branch on a tree, and let's say, there's snow or that's falling on that tree, that branch is going to bend with the weight of the snow. Now, if that branch is stiff and old, the weight of the snow is going to cause the branch to break. If it's dry, stiff, and old, it will break, right? So that stress is going to lead to a breakage. Otherwise, we've got a younger branch that is pliable and resilient, and it's going to take the weight of that snow and it's going to actually get stronger. So that next time that snow drops on that tree branch, it's going to be able to handle it and bounce right back. So it's the same with exercise, right? In order to our muscles to get stronger, we need a certain amount of stress, and we learn how to manage it. We say, that looks really hard, and then we do it a few times and it's not hard anymore. We get stronger, we get fitter, and that's an example of how stress can help you be stronger. However, if you're not taking care of yourself and the body gets stiff and non-pliant and not adaptable and not flexible, it can break with that same stress. So again, stress can be utilized to our advantage as we learn how to manage it and how to adapt to it, given that it is, obviously not massive catastrophe, but a lot of it is our mindset of saying, how can I use this as an opportunity for growth, for learning, for getting stronger? So when we take that on as a mindset, something that seems like a big stress or a big problem becomes a challenge that I can manage, that I can reckon with.
Absolutely. So when we are talking about managing stress and everything, so what are the physical symptoms of stress? So how can one identify the sources of stress in their lives? How would we know that we are stressed or we are deeply stressed or not?
Well, first of all, you're going to know because you either feel good or you don't, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's as simple as that, right? And a lot of people actually don't know that they're not feeling well because they've never actually felt well. They just kind of go on their life living the way they do. But if you're having back pain or headaches or gastrointestinal systems, that's stress. So again, if you feel like a sense of aliveness and a sense of happiness and a sense of joy, and your brain feels clear and you have tons of energy, likely is that your body is experiencing normal stress, but you're managing it well. And if you're not, then it's the opposite. So the way I like to explain to people the physical signs of stress is to think about the physiology itself. So when the brain perceives that you're under duress and there's a stress, there's a fight or flight response that gets triggered, which is set off by stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, which lead to a variety of physiological changes that lead to physical symptoms. So again, if you're being chased by a lion, which is an example of, severe stress, you're not going to sleep because adrenaline is coursing through your brain. You're not going to, your muscles are going to be tense to prepare you to fight like mad, run like heck, which means the lower back will stiffen, the neck will stiffen, the shoulders will squeeze up tight, your fists will squeeze up, your jaw will come forward so that you're grimacing. So again, so now we have insomnia as an example, or sleep disturbance, or we have muscle pain or muscle tension or aching or stiffness. That's another example. Your heart rate's going to go up and your blood pressure is going to go up. So those are signs of stress that's not going away. Now, again, I just want to point out that these physiological changes are beneficial for the system in the short term. It's when they don't get turned off, they don't get put out. So as we're talking that stress isn't going away, that's when the blood pressure stays up and the heart rate stays up and the muscles stay tense and the sleep disturbance continues. What else happens if you're being chased by a lion? It's not a good time to eat. So your digestive system will shut down. Your body will go into what's called catabolism to break down resources for energy. So your bones are breaking down to give you minerals, and your liver is breaking down to give you glucose, and your fat cells are breaking down to give you fatty acids, and your muscles are breaking down to give you protein and amino acids. So if you're not getting enough nutrients in, if your body feeling tired, if your bones are getting brittle, again, those are signs of ongoing stress. It's also, if you get cut or wounded, you don't want the wound to bleed or get infected. So your immune system is revved up to protect you. So there's more inflammation. So anything that looks like you have more inflammation, it's telling you that you're under more stress and it's not being managed. So a depression, anxiety, because serotonin and dopamine and neurotransmitters that normally make you happy are dropping down. They're not being absorbed. They're being utilized. So those levels are dropping because it's, not a good time to be happy when you're being chased by a lion. It's appropriate to be in a bad mood. So if you're feeling mentally down and depressed or anxious, those are signs of being under stress. And lastly, if you notice you can't think clearly, there's a reason for that. If you're being chased by a lion, it's not a good time to figure out how to do your taxes or do your accounting. You need to be fighting like mad or running like heck. So you literally, how your brain centers are being shut down. So your brain isn't working as well. You're like a horse with blinders. So if you're having any type of symptoms like that isn't a state of alignment and flow and happiness and joy, you're likely experiencing a state of stress. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, because that motivates action and change, like being hungry or being cold. However, if it continues and it doesn't go away, then that chronic physiological uptick can lead to pathological changes that you will see physically or mentally or emotionally.
Mm-hmm. And when do we know that it's time to go and see a doctor? I mean, there will be a state of stress, right, when it's not healthy anymore, and it will be time for us to go and see the doctor.
Well, I would say for anybody, if you're having any symptoms at all, then make sure that you do whatever healthcare provider you choose to see. But it's also telling you, okay, what can I do to start taking care of myself? If you're starting to feel these things, of course, and I actually go through this in the book called Your Health Destiny. I go through every system of the body and what to look out for and what to talk to your doctor about and what you can do yourself. And there's a lot of things you can do yourself, like taking up a meditation practice or learning how to breathe or starting to, move your body and put better food into your system. So there's a whole slew of what I call the infrastructure and exercises to change that physiological state that you can do for yourself, and you can see if and how you feel better.
And this question which I'm going to ask you is how to stop worrying in order to prevent stress. I mean, we worry all the time. In today's world, all of us are worrying about something or the other. So how do you think we should, how can we stop worrying and prevent stress?
Well, first of all, worry is into your brain. A worry is a unmanageable stress. It's the belief that whatever is happening, I don't have the capacity to manage it. So the first thing is there's some psychological work that you may want to do and fixing on why am I worried? Because a lot of times we worry about things that we don't need to be worried about, right? We create a belief in our brain that we're being chased by a lion. To your brain, a worry is like being chased by a lion. It doesn't distinguish between real or imagined. So that's one thing. It's the cognitive behavioral therapy of working through our belief system and why we're worried in the first place. And the second thing, again, is the different modalities, the different tools that we have in mind-body medicine, exercise, nutrition, relaxation, meditation, laughter, spending time with people, having a spiritual practice. There's all different types of modalities we can use that can change that stress response, that get us into a place of non-duality, of a place where we feel calm and at peace, and those worries are non-existent.
Okay, and like you mentioned, physical exercise can help a lot in times of stress, right? How can physical exercise help us?
Well, I mean, not just in times of stress in general, right? It's good for every part of your body, your brain, and every system. So when you exercise, you release neurotransmitters and endorphins, which are, like putting morphine in your brain, which give you a state of joy and happiness. I'm sure people have had that know about the runner's high, which is what's happening is all types of neurotransmitters and endorphins are flying through your brain to give you a state of happiness and joy and well-being. And also doing something physical helps you feel that way too, makes you feel more accomplished and stronger. So, being physically fit is going to help you feel that and believe that you can handle things more effectively. So there's a lot of research on exercise and how it can be as effective as treating depression and anxiety as even a medication.
And when we talk about exercise, another factor comes into account. So people say that for maintaining a healthy lifestyle, there has to be equal level of exercise and nutrition. So how much can certain food habits induce stress?
Well, there's a lot of research in all these fields, and this new field of nutritional psychiatry is burgeoning, as well as how nutrition affects the body and different system. And again, for those listeners, a lot of this information is in my books and my blogs. And we know that what you eat affects how you think. It affects your mind. It affects your ability to think clearly. It affects your mood. So there is a strong correlation with mood and food. So when we eat a lot of processed foods and foods high in sugar, foods that are fast foods, they are basically starving the microbiome, which are the friendly flora, bacteria, and microorganisms that live in the gut that have a direct connection to the brain and indirect in preventing oxidative stress and inflammation and improving neurotransmitter access to the brain. And what it does is destroys that microbiome, destroys sort of the lining of the gut, and causes more inflammation in the system and doesn't feed the brain. And so you're going to have a bigger correlation with sort of the Western fast food type of lifestyle and mental health problems, which is, that you're putting foreign substances into your body that are not natural. So that's stress right there. And then, of course, the inflammation and all the negative consequences of not getting the nutrients you need are more stress. And then the inflammation that is actually in the brain itself is more stress. So that can be offset. We know that through the traditional diets, Mediterranean diets, Japanese diets, what have you, the diets that are higher in plant-based foods, and vegetable consumption and fruits and nuts and lean proteins and whole grains. And we find that when we do those and add fermented foods or make sure that we get the correct probiotic and prebiotic food, that mental health issues and the ability to feel that you can handle life more effectively improves.
Okay. So basically plant-based food help a lot with stress, right?
Yes. In traditional diets, fermented foods, foods that support the microbiome.
Mm-hmm. When we are talking about stress, so I believe anxiety and paranoia also are a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to go into paranoia. That's really a very strong term, which people use in psychiatry and psychology. So I think, worry and negative thinking. I think paranoia, like I said, that's a very strong word. I prefer to use the word negative. Negative mindset, negative thinking, limiting, what we call limiting beliefs, and a limited mindset versus a growth mindset. So it's looking at everything as if it's a catastrophe, if it's the worst thing ever, if it's a nightmare, that it's going to be bad or that it is bad, as opposed to being able to have a growth mindset, which is looking at challenges as opportunities for change and growth. So, being open versus closed. Mm-hmm. So, that's what we look at. So what are the tools that we have in our toolbox that support us to have that growth mindset, to have that ability to look at life more openly and more calmly, which is going to also allow us to make better decisions. So again, exercise, nutrition, meditation, spirituality, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And in for example, in the current world, so all of us are busy with our work, and we our time management, then good sleep, meditation, we often don't even get time to meditate. So do you think all these things, meditation, time management skills, and a good sleep can help in reducing stress and anxiety? And if yes, how do you think we can do this with all the workplace stress in between?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the whole, there isn't enough time. I mean, again, that's sort of where a lot of my work comes in, is helping people be in the flow of their life and bring meditation into life rather than having to live life to meditate. So this illusion that we don't have time is truly an illusion, because it really doesn't take that much time to breathe. You have your breath with you all the time, and it doesn't take time to be mindful. In fact, when you create the ability to be present in the moment rather than thinking about your to-do list, you create space and time in the every moment, and then you find that the stress levels go down. So I do believe that being better organized, I think when I work with executives, and these are top level executives, the thing that they, and I can tell you 1,000% yes, that when I teach them how to be mindful and how to improve their organizational skills of setting up their time and becoming more self-aware and in touch with their beliefs and what's happening internally that's leading to their decisions and their behaviors, 1,000% they're much less stressed, and to a point where some people would describe them as stress-free.
And what are some of the techniques for stress relief? Are there specific things which we can do to relieve our stress? And one other thing. So about meditation, is meditation only meant to be done in the morning, or we can also do it before we go to sleep?
Well, that's my point, that there's a fallacy into what people think meditation is. So, meditation is many, many different forms, and it can, it's recommended to do it for 20 minutes and 20 minutes twice a day, but it can be done for 10 minutes. It can be done for 5 minutes. You can practice mindfulness. You can go for a walk in nature and immerse your senses in the experience and do a mindful walk. So if you can get to 20 minutes, that's great. If you can't, that's okay too, because you can take a shower mindfully. You can be which is non-judgmental awareness of the present moment and just being fully present, immersing your senses in an experience of showering or getting up in the morning. So it's finding ways to bring in tools into your everyday life. You can, park your car further away from your office and walk up the stairs. So you start moving your body. You can, walk for 10 minutes. You can walk for 5 minutes. It's about incorporating these tools that we have to, engage in our lives. So it's not like it's work. So you take a 5-minute break and you listen to a meditation app or a meditation tape. You can keep a gratitude journal that will remind you about the positives that you have in your life rather than focusing on the negatives. That's going to help. You can do breathing exercises all throughout your day. I have a lot of my executives just every hour in the hour take 10 deep breaths, which will lower their stress response reactivity, which sets them up on for better ability to handle the next hour. You can watch what you eat and think about putting nutrient-rich food into your body and do it mindfully, doing lovingly. You can, examine your relationships and make sure that you spend time with people that bring you joy and enliven you and help you feel loved. So there's a lot of different things that one can do that you can incorporate into your life fairly easily without it being so time consuming.
So, and when talking about workplaces, so can employers incorporate some of these techniques into their wellness programs to prevent stress amongst their employees?
Absolutely. I mean, we do it all the time. So you can have individualized coaching, and you can also have groups. You can have Zoom calls where you have somebody do a guided meditation for people or teach people about the stress management. You can bring in people to do yoga classes. You can encourage them to, have a lot of signages around the building where it encourages walking up the stairs or encourages activities. You can have groups that come together that take walks during the lunch breaks. You can have, if you have a cafeteria, vending machines, you have nutrient-rich foods there. You can encourage social gatherings where people are connecting and feeling more connected, because a big source of stress is a sense of disconnection. So there's a lot of different things that corporations can either just implement or implement in a wellness program. Doesn't necessarily have to be a wellness program.
Mm-hmm. Are these the techniques of stress relief, or there are certain other ways also?
There's a whole slew, there's a lot of different types of stress techniques. And, there's a whole gamut. There's a whole toolbox available for people for stress management. Again, prime is lowering that stress response, finding ways to get that stress response to be better regulated. So that's going to be through the different channels that help you regulate stress response, which is positive thinking, positive psychology, positive emotions. It's going to be through exercise. It's going to be through meditation techniques or relaxation techniques. It's going to be through taking vacations, spending time with people you love, having fun, doing playfulness, journaling, finding somebody to talk to about what you're going through. So any type of therapy or counseling. So these are just some techniques. Spirituality is well known to enable people to manage stress more effectively. So what helps you feel more connected to something larger? We know spending time in nature is of utmost importance for a sense of connection and for stress management. So again, there's a lot of different tools available for people to better manage stress.
Mm-hmm. Can you highlight some of the long-term consequences which stress can lead to if it remains unchecked?
Well, it can lead to any type of mental or physical pathological problem, you name it. It's going to make it more likely that if you're prone to getting something that you will get it because your body's out of balance. So, and we know through epigenetics that environment can influence our genes to express themselves or not. So, the better you take care of yourself, the less likely those physical and mental health issues will show up. So, you can't blame everything on stress, but we do know that stress can make things worse.
Absolutely. Okay, so that brings to our last question of this session. So can you suggest some more valuable tips on stress management with our listeners?
More than what I've said. Well, let's see. Let's do some simple techniques. Again, I would say take a deep breaths in. I would say count to 3. I like this one a lot, is when you count to 3 as you breathe in, and then count to 6 as you breathe out. And you do at least 10 breaths every hour in the hour. So that's just one very simple thing that you can do. The other thing is I recommend is keeping a gratitude journal. Like I said before, it helps you focus on what you have and what you are rather than what you don't. 3, I would say get out in nature. Try to get 10 to 20 minutes a day out in nature, whether you're just sitting in a park or you're going for a walk or you're gardening or you're going out to the water, whatever it is you do. Spend some time reconnecting with nature, because a big source of stress in our modern world is our disconnection from nature. The next one is I recommend is finding a spiritual practice that works for you, whether you are religious or whether you're not. Finding something that helps you feel connected. So again, join a religious group or a spiritual group or a meditation group, or spend time in nature, or whatever it is that helps you feel that sense of profound connection. So that would be my other suggestion. And lastly, I would say work on getting your sleep. So pay attention to sleep. Lack of sleep creates a lot of stress in the body. Mm-hmm. So create what I call sleep hygiene. So set the same time that you're going to go to bed and wake up every day. Take away stimulants. Make sure your room is dark and only for sleep and sex and nothing else. Do not work in your bedroom. Don't, do anything that's stimulating the bedroom. Make sure that it's quiet and dark and a place where you can really sleep. And like I said, avoid stimulants before bedtime. The time, an hour or so before bed or 2 hours before bed, it needs to be a downtime where things are relaxed and quieting down. That'll help bring cortisol levels down and help you sleep more effectively, which is going to allow you to feel more rested the next day and help you look at the world as being a lot more manageable. If you have a sleep disorder, definitely check with your healthcare provider to help you with that and perhaps do a sleep study.
So in short, exercise, nutrition, and sleep are the three most important things to prevent stress, right?
No. No, exercise, it's all the things that the human system, our ancestors evolved with much more stress than we have. And you look at what did they use to mitigate stress? They had each other. That is number one, is social support and love. Number one. They needed food. Yes. So nutrient-rich food. They moved their body. That's what we call survival of the fittest. That was because they were fit. So getting your body fit. It is the time out, relaxation, meditation, sleep. Those are times for recovery and rest and sleep. So the meditation falls into there as well. That mindfulness of being fully present and spirituality. Our ancestors survived because they believed in something much greater than. So those are at least, I say there's the 6 pillars for resilience, which I think are absolute, are 1, physical vitality. So the things that it takes to help your physical health, and that includes nutrition and sleep and exercise. 2, mental toughness and mental clarity. Work on your mindset. What your beliefs and what you're thinking, what you're feeling. You have to work those through and work towards having a growth mindset. 3, your emotions. Being emotionally aware, emotional intelligence is very important, and working through your emotions and not letting your emotions run you, because your emotions are the ones that create the negative mindset and the stress. 4 are your relationships. Creating loving and healthy relationships. Those social bonds are what allow us to fully survive. 5, spirituality. Connect with your sense of belonging and connected to something much greater than. And 6 is knowing that you do not exist alone, and how you influence others in your community or your home as a leader. So all those are the 6 pillars of resilience, and what I say are important for stress management. And that's all depicted in my book, Resilience for Dummies.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, Eva.
You're welcome.
It was very insightful. Like, even I did not know a lot of things. So thanks for sharing. And I hope you also had a great session with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage Fit Corporate Wellness Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.